It was an interesting Friday night encounter that had a lot of people salivating at the result as Brisbane beat the Western Bulldogs and were able to get their season back on track. Getting into the game, I thought the first quarter was as even and as tightly contested as one could get. I thought both teams threw a lot of interesting punches early. I thought that both teams were countering each other well in the midfield. I thought both were taking strong marks in the forward line. And I both each team's defense was playing really well. I noted early on that Eric Hipwood was playing phenomenally for Brisbane. And I just thought that from a Dogs point of view, I thought guys like Angela and Marcus Bontempelli were ready to influence their will into the game and really made the game their own. I thought both teams took their opportunities and I really thought we were in for a close game, but in the second quarter, Brisbane just took it up to another level. They really did. Forced mistakes out of the Bulldogs, played extremely well in the midfield. Lachie Neale played just a phenomenal quarter of football, and I thought, which I will get into a little bit more on the Dogs' point of thing, I thought their defense was really grinded in, and I thought it was really stretched out by the influence that Brisbane's bigs were having. In particular, Eric Hipwood having a day out, and I thought Joe Danaher, even though he missed a few, I thought he had a good impact on the game. On the game as well. But the major thing, the part of the game where I really thought it got out of hand for the Lions and really had them on the way to winning in such a big way was those last two goals of the period. In particular, the buzzer beater by Lachie Neale. There's a lot of congestion about whether this actually was a goal or not. I noticed Abby Holmes in the post-game did say she definitely thought it wasn't a goal, but from what I saw from a non-biased perspective, I saw that ball leave his boot in time. So that's a goal in my opinion. That is well and truly a goal, and I thought it was just massive. The moment he kicked that, I said to my dad, who was watching with me, I said to him, Brisbane will win by 2 here. The Dogs will pull up somewhat of a comeback, but they will win by 2 here. And it wasn't even that. So full credit to Brisbane. They've had points this season where it's you want them to, they show glimpses of the form they showed in 2023 when they made the grand final. That Melbourne game in round 5 was one, and this was another one where it's just they completely out-muscle and outnumber a team that they were, because of their form going into it, underdogs against, and just played so well. I thought the biggest reason they won were 2 reasons. I thought the defense of the Lions was just extraordinary. Throughout the rest of the game, the third and fourth quarter, their defense was amazing. Harris Andrews was getting what he wanted, and I thought the Dogs just couldn't stretch it out. And the midfield was also incredible as well. Oscar McInerney had that moment where he looked a bit like Oscar the Grouch, they said post-game after he gave up that goal, but he was phenomenal, right? I thought he really beat Tim English really well in that ruck contest, and Lachie Neale played the best game of his career. If you want to know why Lachie Neale is a 2-time Brownlow medalist, this game is a reason why. He played so well, spread the ball out so well, set up so many goals, and was phenomenal as well. Really, the only line that I thought had a bit of an off night was, insanely enough, Charlie Cameron, who, I don't know, he's been a bit off all of this year, but it didn't really matter as everyone else from Brisbane was so on point and so incredible throughout the game that it didn't matter. And I don't think the Dogs ever showed a legitimate chance of coming back against them, hence why they held that 30-point lead in the final quarter. So yeah, massive win for Brisbane. When it comes to what this win could do when it comes the rest of the season, I think that overall it potentially sets up again. Like, I thought that this was do or die for them on Friday night. They needed to find a way to beat the Dogs, whereas a team that I had as the minor premier for the season was probably going to miss out on finals, but it opens it up again, and there's a few winnable games in their next 5 coming up, so they definitely could have the chance to make a run. They just got to keep winning like this and keep having performances like this so that we can talk about them in the big time again. But the important thing about last night's game was that it opens up the season and it keeps them in it, which in a year where I don't think any team other than Sydney has been a true standout is a big thing to have. Now, talking about the Dogs, I said last week I thought it was really big for them to beat Collingwood in a game that they were expected to win for their confidence. And I specifically said that Brisbane were going to be a big test for them in this game. Well, let's just say that, yeah, it's clear after last night Collingwood would have beaten them last week had they been fully healthy, because this game sent the Dogs back to square one, in which I thought all the confidence that they were building, all the, trust that we had in them not to be, out of nowhere, unpredictable, and Bevo's wild rise, I keep saying. We were starting to trust that they were changing, and this game against, at that time, an out-of-form Lions side truly sent it back to square one, I feel. It's just, they're unpredictable, and I think the biggest thing for the Dogs is that I think they're untrustworthy. They just are, and this game proved it, which is why it was so bad of a loss for them, in my opinion, because it sent them back to square one. They got muscled in defense. I thought Tim English had just a terrible game. He might be thinking a little bit too much of contract stuff at the moment when it comes to what influence he could have. And I thought they were really missing Sam Darcy in the forward line, who missed from a suspension and probably was the difference against Collingwood last week. So, yeah, I don't mind the Dogs, so I really don't like saying this, but they are just an untrustworthy bunch. Untrustworthy, and I think there's always a saying in terms of in general trustworthiness, that I think there's a saying in the general media and just life in general that it takes weeks and weeks and weeks, and this can be applied to the footy season as well. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks to build up a reputation, to have people trust you. It takes one game to destroy that, one performance to destroy that, and I think that's what happened to the Dogs. Back to square one. It'll be interesting to see how both teams come up the following week for this, and for Brisbane, it's a big win, keeps them back in the race, which I think you need to do in this season, and their chance of making the 8 is still alive.